how's it going? My name is Ashley Rose, but as you know, you can call me Ash, like the Evil Dead. Welcome back. Welcome back to the channel. Blah, 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 blah. You're going to see some sponsors pop up. And
This episode is powered by Curse Cosmetics. Use my code ARoseDistortion for 10% off, where horror meets beauty. And also go to Abracadabra NYC, where horror is year-round. The year-round Halloween store. That's Abracadabra NYC. Same code for 10% off ARoseDistortion.
What's going on, y'all? This is Jacob with Secret Society of Goths, and I've spent the past half decade making content for bands from all over the world to help them grow their audiences organically. I never use AI and I never use bots, so if you're an artist trying to grow your audience, hit me up. Send me one message on Instagram and we will get a plan going for you.
anyways, I am here today with TB from Blitzkid. TB, how you doing, man? How you
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I know. I've been meaning to ask you, but with everything going on, and disregard the Band-Aid on my finger.
Oh yeah,
I've been meaning
stuff
to have
happens.
you on. Yeah, I've been meaning to have you on, so it's good to finally have you here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect timing. So we're going to get into, well, first of all, let's start with the tour. You have a tour coming up in fall, so let's
We
talk
do.
about it.
We're going out with the mighty Nim Vind, and I'm excited about it because we've been friends and played with those guys for like, God, 19, 18, 19 years. We've been playing with those dudes and been friends with those guys. But we've only ever toured with them once in Germany. We played a couple festivals on the same bills with them in Germany. We did a full tour with them over in Germany. I think it was 2008, 2009, if memory serves. But yeah, I'm excited about it because, like I said, they're buddies of ours, and it's going to be cool to tour the States with them for a change instead of Germany. Touring Germany with them rules, but it's going to be nice to get them out on the East Coast, the Midwest kind of thing. So I don't think they've played too many shows in that area. So it'll be cool for us and cool for them too, I think.
Yeah, well, this time around with Nim Vind, it's a different lineup. It's
Right.
its lineup changes a lot. So there's that. I think I want to say it was probably Germany the last time you were with Nim.
I'd say it
Well,
was.
it definitely was Germany. I will say that. He tours a lot over there.
Yeah, it was. The lineup then, if I'm not mistaken, was was Chris, obviously, Howie on bass, and Chris's brother on drums, whose name unfortunately Tony on drums, and there we go. But that was good. That was around the same amount of shows that we're going to be doing with them stateside, 5-6 shows. So it should be fun. And we're friends with the guys from Evelyn's Casket, who are basically going to be backing Chris up this time too. So I think that's going to be fun. Me and David talk all the time. So hey David, what's up?
Yeah, he might watch this. I don't know.
He might.
I don't know, but he knows he knows you're on. So we did just have David on a couple weeks ago.
Mhm.
That interview's still going pretty strong. I'm pretty happy about that. Of course, I'm happy. It's on my platform. It's doing well.
Sure.
So let's get back to Blitzkid. Blitzkid has been around for quite some time. So how's it been seeing the evolution of horror punk throughout all these years and generations? Because it has stayed the same relatively, but it's also changed with some new acts.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting versus if I can sound like the elder the elder statesman of the scene for a second or whatever. I don't consider myself as such, by the way, but it's interesting. You'll hear my dogs running around in the background too. I apologize.
It's okay. You're gonna hear my animals. I have my cats around. There's a dog outside, so.
Gotcha. No, it's been interesting to see how things have evolved, because when we started, literally, I think there was, of course, there was the Misfits, Samhain, the Damned, the Undead, all of those bands that had come before. But when we started doing our thing, it was, obviously still the Misfits were doing their thing. They had gotten back together and were doing the, 95 Misfits 95 era, as it's called now. But there was also, I think there was literally like us, the Crypt Keeper 5, Green Goblin Project, the Vladimirs, and a band out of Texas called Erie Lane and Mr. Monster, and that was it. And that was literally it. That's all we knew about at first. And I found all those bands, to give you an idea of how long ago it was. I found about all of those bands on via Napster and like Kazaa and LimeWire and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh my god, there's other bands out there like us that are doing something similar. So you know and I think during that time, the big difference too was, you still had to call people on the phone. You still had to go out and flyer. You still had to, send out press kits by mail. You couldn't just email the clubs or email the venues or email the promoters or send out your EPK via email, or you couldn't share a post on social media. You couldn't, there were no, virtual flyers or anything like that. So I'm not saying that it was harder, for us by any means, but I think it was definitely a little more, a little less digital, a little more physical work to put into things back then. And we literally started playing shows out of town and out of state and across the East Coast, because there was this lovely resource for, not just horror punk bands, but for punk bands back in the day, called bookyourownfuckinglife.org. Can I swear on here?
Yeah, you can say
Okay. Sorry.
UK slang word with the C.
Yeah. So yeah, it was called bookyourownfuckinglife.org. So, this was in the infancy of the internet, but it was a huge resource, and we literally would book shows via that website and get in touch with promoters all over the East Coast at the time. And some of them were hit, some of them were miss, and some of them fell through, et cetera, as things do for bands and everything. But yeah, that was literally one of the only resources out there for us at the time. And it's cool to see now, because coming up as we did, like I said, there was such a tight knit scene. There was just a handful of bands doing it. And when we got a chance to play with those bands, it was cool, because we became friends with them and are friends with a lot of them to this day. We're still friends with the guys from Crypt Keeper 5, Mr. Monster, obviously Green Goblin Project, the Vladimirs. Although the Vladimirs, I don't think, are really doing much anymore, but no, it was a very cool time. It was like, the salad days, if you will. And I think what's cool now is, I'm not saying that the bands don't have to work as hard, because they do it. And in a lot of ways, they have to work harder, because now I feel like you don't only have to be a band, you don't only have to be an artist, you don't only have to be a musician, you have to be a content creator as well, in a way, because now everything is based on those sort of metrics. Everything's based on how many Spotify plays you have. Everything's based on how many followers you have on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook and stuff like that. So I think in that regard, it's probably a little bit tougher now, because there's just so much out there now, and everybody just kind of doom scrolls, unless it's something that really is attention capturing, and they're really a fan of the bands that are doing it now. I'm not saying no one pays attention, but there's just so much out there now. It's just, how do you pay attention to it all? It's difficult. So I think in that regard, I think we may have had it a bit easier, because there wasn't such a big digital world out there, and there wasn't the kind of metrics that bands are dealing with now. But it's evolved in the sense that I feel like, being as we've been around since 1997, 28 years, this past January, actually. I think it's kind of cool that I hear bands now who take influence from us. Whereas, we were taking influence from bands like The Misfits, Bad Religion, Face to Face, Strung Out, No Use for a Name, stuff like that. And now I hear bands where I'm like, oh, I can I can hear a little Blitzkid in that. That's cool. So it's kind of come full circle for us. We started out taking influence from the stuff that we loved, and I think bands, are kind of just doing the same thing. They're just taking stuff, they're taking influence from the stuff that they love too, and it's good because I feel like one of the things that has changed since we started doing it too is I think it's quicker for bands to put their stuff out now because now you can record stuff from your house. You can just have a room in your house and just record stuff on your laptop or on your PC or on your Mac or whatever, and it sounds just as good as like studio quality recordings. Whereas back in the day, we had to go to a studio, we had to pay for that time, we had to pay for the mixing, pay for the mastering, pay for the recording time, pay to have it pressed, whatever else. Now bands can just upload stuff to Spotify or Bandcamp, or they can sell stuff on their website via digital downloads. And so it's definitely different than when we were first starting out. Things are a lot more immediate now. And but the one thing I will say about a lot of the newer bands that I hear now is that I think the influence that, because we did it too, on obviously everyone that's heard our first couple of records has, believe me, they've told me they can hear some of the influences from the Misfits and Samhain, maybe some Danzig in there as well. And fully, absolutely, yeah, we totally took some of that for sure. And but what I think is happening now is like I don't hear so many bands that are like Misfits version 2463. There's not so much copycatting of that particular sound going on. I think early on, like when we were in the middle of doing our thing, a lot of bands were trying to, kind of come along, and we're just kind of resting on that laurel. But now it seems like everybody's kind of trying to add their own spin to it and kind of just making quality songs that aren't even like, to me, like, even if they weren't horror punk, I'm just like, okay, that's a good song. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think the musicianship and the songwriting and everything has stepped up quite a bit nowadays. And, that's the one big thing that I've noticed is there are some bands that still do it, and if they do it well, that's awesome. If they want to sound like Misfits 95 or Misfits 77 to 83, that's cool. Do it well, that's great. Or the Damned or the Undead or whoever. That's fine. I have no problem with that at all. And I'm not shitting on any of those bands that may do that. When I say that, it's if you do it well and that's your bread and butter, that's your gravy, then hey, awesome. But I think bands now are kind of looking outside that box a little more, and they're looking outside even horror punk influences now. There's a band called 52 Ways out of Atlanta area who to me have always kind of sounded like the horror punk version of like Newfound Glory or something, so, and they just released a new record. So you guys check that out when you get a chance. Good buddies of mine. But yeah, like bands like Evelyn's Casket are undoubtedly, and David would tell you this himself, Evelyn's Casket are undoubtedly influenced by us. So it's a huge compliment for me, and it's very flattering to see bands that are, like I said, that are obviously have been influenced by us coming out now and doing their thing. It's like I said, it just kind of brings everything full circle, because we were that band at one point. We were writing songs based on bands that influenced us too. So, and we still do.
Is it
It's just kind of everybody has their piece of the song, if you will, in their own way.
TB, is it true that originally you didn't call it horror punk? Y'all called it ghoul rock. Is that true?
Yeah. We called it ghoul rock, and I actually had a leather jacket at one point, because we were kind of like leaning into the whole it's the whole punk rock aspect of it early on. Now our influences are much more diverse and everything like that. But yeah, I used to have a leather jacket that had like a like the skull and crossbones painted on it. It had a red mohawk, and and on the bottom it said, it was on top said Blitzkid, had our logo. Goolsby painted it for me, by the way, and on the bottom it said Ghoulie High, 77. So we were at the time we were loving bands like again the Misfits, but we also loved bands like Blank 77s, Corrupted Ideals, the Queers, Screeching Weasel, stuff like that. So we were kind of we called it Ghoul Rock at first, yeah, and little known little known fact is that Goolsby's stage name, which he didn't come up with, I came up with, and he reluctantly agreed until he came up with Argyle Goolsby. Goolsby's stage name at first was Zombie Eater, and which is awful. So thankfully, he found something that he liked better, and he changed it. But yeah, and Blitzkid is actually Goolsby's first band, first and only band that he'd ever joined. He learned how to play bass right-handed because he didn't want to spend the money to buy a left-handed bass. So he's ambidextrous in that way. He's left-handed by nature, but he plays bass right-handed. So, but yeah, 28 years we've been doing it, and it's like I said, it's kind of cool to see how things have changed and how things have evolved and how bands are like I said, the biggest takeaway that I think I get from things now versus then was, like I said, bands are kind of stepping outside of that box. They're not so content to sound like the Misfits or the Undead or Sam Hain or Danzig or I hear bands that have I can hear AFI in some bands nowadays. I can hear Alkaline Trio in some bands like 52 Ways, who I mentioned. I hear Newfound Glory and stuff like that. So it's becoming more and more diverse, and I think bands are just kind of writing more what they like instead of we're supposed to sound like this. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Instead of the traditional doo-wop sound.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, I love that stuff, but nobody's ever going to do it better than Mr. Monster. No one. So I mean, we have our CAFG songs too, but they just took it to a whole nother level, and just kind of you can tell that there's Frankie Valli, Bobby Darin, all those kind of things going on in their influences. So I at that point I'm like, well, we shouldn't we shouldn't bother because they've kind of got this nailed, and if we do it, it's just going to kind of seem like we're copying Mr. Monster now. But shout out to those guys, and Jason was actually a Blitzkid for a long time too. He was in Blitzkid for about 2 years. But yeah, we were basically like sister bands with Mr. Monster for a long time. They book us shows, we book them shows. They tour, we tour with them, or we tour, they tour with us, kind of thing. And we put the split 10-inch out with them, Exhuming Graves and Making Dates. And I really hope at some point there will be another Tri-Auction tribute, because given the sadness of the situation, it was still a very good time. And that show was responsible for getting us back together, getting us to kind of say, the reasons we were doing it were sad and kind of melancholy, but we were like, at the end of it, we were like, that was fun. Let's maybe do that again. And cut to, like, I think it was like 3 weeks later, our old booking agent called up and said, hey, I saw you guys played like a reunion show in New Jersey. Are you guys back together? And we said, no, it's just kind of a one-off thing. A friend of ours had passed away, and they wanted his family wanted us to play it because he was a friend of ours, and he was in our band for a bit too. And we said, sure, why not? So, but it was fun, and
Jason was in a lot of so many bands.
What's up?
I said Jason was involved in so many bands, as far as
yeah,
just in general. From at least from my research, I didn't personally meet him or anything, but
right,
that's just from what I discovered, that he had involvement in a lot of different bands.
Absolutely, yeah. Blitzkid, Mr. Monster, Spy Society '99. Even some stuff for Empire Hideous. I think he actually wrote, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I don't misquote this, but I think he actually wrote that song "Till the End" for Empire Hideous, but decided to use it for Mr. Monster. But yeah, like I said, our old booking agent after that was like, "Hey, if you guys want, man, let's book a tour." And we said, "Yeah, okay." So and then COVID happened, and then that tour didn't happen for 2.5 years. So, but hey, we're here, and we're back, and you know in full swing, and like about to hit the road again. And with Nim Vind in September, and that's gonna be a fun time.
It
Looking
was
forward to that.
I was really surprised at like the announcement. I'll be honest with you. Uh, I was particularly surprised to see not necessarily that it didn't happen, just that it was happening in the States between, I was going to say y'all. I'm just going to say y'all because I'm from Texas and they teach us that that's a word.
Get it?
Y'all and Chris. So, and Nim Vind. So I was pretty surprised on the fact that it was actually happening in the States. And I was like, I gotta go to this.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's the thing. We had talked about it, months ago, and we had kind of laid the groundwork. We said, you know what, let's do some Midwest, kind of like East Coast Midwest dates, but let's see if we could bring them Vend along. That would be cool because we haven't done anything with them in a while. And luckily they said yes, and here we are.
I know that you recently had like an EP. So are there any plans for new music as far as with Blitzkid? That's going to be the question everyone wants to know for sure. So I want to get that out of the way. I want to make sure I ask that because I know someone's going to be like, "But what about a new Blitzkid album?" I mean,
Yeah.
I know we had like the EP with like the werewolves. That was one,
Right. Right.
which was cool. It was cool, and then you had rarities too, which was cool. I bought it, whatever. So go ahead, go ahead.
I would say yes. We don't have a timetable on something like that right now. But you know, Goolsby and I and Ryan have been sharing ideas and sharing demos and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely in the plans. It's definitely, it's not in the rear view, but it's in the foreground, and it's something that we're going to be doing relatively soon, I would say. But as far as a definitive timetable, we don't have one. But yes, there will eventually
No,
be.
let's we'll get it out of the way because someone's gonna be like,
Yeah, no, no,
"How
no
come you
problem.
didn't ask about the new Blitzkid album?" Ashley, what kind of interview or are you?
Right, right. No, yeah, no, there will be new Blitzkid stuff. There will be a new Blitzkid. And at this point, I would venture to say that it would be a full length for sure, because I feel like
Right.
I feel like 4 songs was just kind of a big tease, with the Lycanthro AP and everything. So that kind of
I
that
totally
kind of
missed out on
satiated
that.
people for a minute, but it's like it's like less than 15 minutes of music. So it's, yeah, for sure the next thing will be a full length, and I would probably venture to say, 12, 13 songs. I don't know that for sure. But yeah, there's definitely new
The,
music coming. When, I don't know.
cool.
Whenever we decide that it's time.
Okay, so
That's my answer.
is it true you wrote "She Dominates"?
Yes.
You wrote the whole song.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it true it's you knew like it was? Is it about a dominatrix that you were fond of? I heard about that.
Um,
Okay, you can talk about it here.
no,
It's a great song. It's a great song. Everyone loves it. I'm sure everyone appreciates it.
yeah, it's got like, there's a lot of perverts out there that's got like 4 million, 4 million spins on Spotify or whatever. But
I lost count after like 2 million on Spotify. I
I,
think in my video I was like 1 million. I was like, oh no, it's like four.
yeah, like I didn't write it. Okay, so to set the record
Just
straight,
want the record straight because I heard different things.
I
I
did
wasn't
not.
sure it was about a lady that you knew.
I did not write it about a dominatrix. No. I did, however, write it about a lady that I was dating at one point who had some of those
Oh, okay.
tendencies, and we experimented with some things, and I wrote a song about it. So yeah, that's the story. That's really
I
it.
just wanted the real story. That's all. I also have another question. I know, like, Steve's not here, and if y'all don't know who Steve is, that's Goolsby. I know he might. I know this is a question about him
Okay.
writing, so I hope you can answer after 20 something years of being together in a
Okay.
band. I heard, I forgot, well, I didn't hear. I saw an interview, and he said that apparently that there was a ghost that was attracted to him for some reason, and that he was writing a song about her. What song was that? Did he write the song? Is it from him, or is it a Blitzkid song? Because I've just genuinely been curious.
I I have that's lore that's new to me. I've never heard that.
Yeah,
I
that,
I apologize. I can't answer it.
well, hopefully one day he'll be on here. I
There
invited
you
him
go.
here one time, but he has a busy schedule. I will ask him, but I've genuinely been curious about that.
Yeah, no, like that's literally that you're the first person that's ever asked me that. I've never even heard that actually. So this is my first time hearing that. That's kind of funny. I mean, I could embellish it and give you some kind of like wild, crazy answer, but it wouldn't be wrong. It would be wrong. So I don't. I want. We'll get that straight from Goolsby when he gets a chance to be on here with you.
Maybe that she was attracted to him. Maybe I'm over exaggerating that, but apparently that she liked rocker dudes, according to a medium that he met, um, and that he had said he was writing a song about her. But I was curious if you knew if he actually did write the song and what song it was.
Like again, like I have never. This
Never
is
heard that story.
No, this is the first time I'm hearing it.
Really?
That's crazy. I'm gonna have to ask him about it now. That's funny.
Like, Ash asked me this question that I don't know the answer to.
Yeah, like I got me, man. I'm drawing a blank there.
Yeah, it's okay. Is it true that
It's kind of a cool idea for a song, though.
Yeah, I wonder what if he ever did. That's why I was just genuinely curious about
Right,
it.
right.
Uh, is it true he got his name from a customer he called at a call center?
Yes, absolutely. And his last name, Goolsby, the last name, yes. The Argyle part comes from the fact that he was and still is a Bouncing Souls fan, and they had that album called Argyle. So he kind of put two and two together. And also, as far as the Goolsby part, the funny thing is now is we get people all the time sending us photos and everything, especially in this part of the world where we are, Southwest West Virginia / Virginia. There's there's a sausage company around this area, I guess, called Goolsby's, and you can actually find it in Walmart and stuff. So people have been like for the last probably 7-8 years been sending us photos from time to time, like, oh, check it out. I didn't realize Goolsby was making sausage now, or something. And so, but yeah, the customer from a call center thing is absolutely 100% true. He and I worked at this really shady, sketchy call center together called Civic Development Group, and there's actually
The
there's actually
documentary about it. I've seen it. I've actually seen it. I know
the
what you're talking
documentary.
about. Yes, I've seen it. I know
Yeah,
what you're talking about.
yeah. Like I was watching it one night, and I texted him. I said, "Yo," I was like, there's a documentary on HBO about Civic Development Group. He's like, dude, I seen it. I saw it. He's like, I told Jordan, his wife. He's like, I told Jordan. I'm like, holy fuck! Like Tracy and I used to work there. So yeah, if you guys get a chance, I forget what it's called, but it's on HBO Max, and it's
Yeah.
a documentary about Civic Development Group. It was apparently one of the not one of but the largest telemarketing scam in the United States ever. So yeah, we worked there for a while.
Okay.
Goolsby worked there longer than I did. I got fired.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, well, they fired me for a really good reason, which is a really funny story actually. I was having a really, being that it's telemarketing. I'll wrap this story up quick, but being that it's telemarketing and that you have people like being a jerk to you all day long on the phone.
Oh, yeah. No, I get it.
I was
I worked in telemarketing.
so I was having a really bad day, and it just seemed like every customer that I spoke to was just being a jerk. And what made it worse, I think, was we were we would call we would call people and try to get them to donate money to different
Mm-hmm.
police organizations. So of course there's not a lot of fans of the police out there, no matter where we called. And I was just having a particularly bad day. Everybody was cussing me out. Everybody, I get a real fucking job, and stuff like that. So I decided there was if they didn't take one of the top pledge levels that we had, which none of the money went to the organizations we were calling on behalf of. If they didn't take one of the top levels, which we had a gold, we had a silver, we had a bronze, right? So we had 35, 25, 15. So if they said no to any of that, we were prompted to say to them, well, if you'd like, I could put you down for 10, blah blah blah.
Oh,
And they
you
said,
rebuttal.
yeah, exactly. um, so if they said no to that, we said, okay, well, would you like, if you like, I can get your name and address. I have it here on file. I can send you out an information kit, and you can make an informed decision once you read the information packet that we sent to you. So again, I was having a very particularly bad day one day, and getting cussed out left and right, being told to get a real job, I'm a loser, blah, blah, blah. And so I took it upon myself to send about 8 or 9 information kits out with obscenities and the name boxes for people. So that I got fired.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I won't go into the names, but they were pretty bad.
So, let's go back to Blitzkid, TB. Long live the horror. So, I know where it came from, but I know there's some people that don't know where it came from. Where did it come from? And also, what does it mean to you personally, knowing that the whole community in horror punk, horror rock adapted it as their personal phrase or saying or phrase in general?
Well, I'll do it. I'll do the question in reverse. I'll what it means to me personally is I think it's cool that it's become a rallying cry of sorts for the entire community, as it were, no matter where they are, whether they be in Europe, Asia, Australia, United States, Canada. And I think to me, when I came up with the phrase, to me, what it means to me is, on the surface, oh, long live the horror. So it means, long live, horror punk or horror rock, whatever, ghoul rock, whatever you want to call it. Which it does. That's what it means. Yes. But that's just surface level for me. It kind of means deeper, you know, kind of, you know, 3 cheers for the outcasts, 3 cheers for everybody who's kind of, misunderstood, who doesn't have a place, who wants to fit in a group of people that they feel are like-minded, and that they can get along with, that they can vibe with, or that they can feel like they're kindred spirits with, and that they can be affected by, and that they can affect in return. And um, that's literally what it means to me. So to have you know people all over the world literally now kind of saying it to one another, and in regard to the community, or in regard to each other, or in regard to bands, etc., that they like, it's really fucking cool. Because honestly, this first part of your question, where it came from, was I've always been a big wrestling fan. I know you are as well, and I know you've been involved in wrestling also, so you'll get this. Maybe those that aren't involved in the business or don't understand the business maybe won't. But at the time when Blitzkid started, you're talking 96, 97, there were the Monday Night Wars, there was WCW versus WWE and ECW, and there was, one of the best times ever to be a wrestling fan. And as so often was the case, especially with WWE back then, everybody had a catchphrase, whether it was, the DX thing, or whether it was Austin 316, or, whether it was The Rock Says, et cetera, et cetera. New Age Outlaws. all that stuff. Rob Van Dam, whole fucking show, anything like that, Mr. Monday Night, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, on and on and on. Being a huge wrestling nerd that I am, I thought, well, it'd be cool for us to have kind of, for me to have to have a catchphrase at the end of the show, or say like, during the show or something. So yeah, around that time I started, and at first, especially locally here, people were just like, "So stupid, man! You sound like a wrestler." And I'm like, "Yeah, exactly." Because I didn't care, but I get it. Not everybody got it, at the time, but now, look at it now. Everybody gets it now. So, where was I wrong, kind of thing. But I just started saying it, during the show or at the end of the show, especially. I would just say, "Hey, Blitzkid, thank you very much. Long live the horror." And it just kind of, I've been saying it, every performance since, from that time on. And the fact that it's, become like such a universal, again, I don't want to say catchphrase, because it's more like like I said, now it's more like a rallying cry for people. The fact that it's become such a thing like that is really cool, because I just wanted something kind of catchy and kind of memorable to say at the end of our shows that kind of made us stand out at the time. And
The important thing. It really is. Just in general, it is.
Yeah, I think, I think, and you, like I said, you look at the phrase, on its own, and it's, very, very basic, very it's not very abstract, but there's an abstract and deeper meaning behind it, which I think a lot of people have picked up on now, and it's cool. But yeah, that's literally where it came from. It came from me liking wrestling and thinking that we needed a catchphrase or something that I could say at the end of our shows or during our shows that would make us stand out, make us a little bit different from everybody at the time.
That's what they teach you. I mean, that's generally what they teach you. That's why I open up the way that I do, and I haven't changed it for a couple years. Because when you speak in such like a confident manner with something that's similar, relatable, something that you won't forget, it naturally puts, as we say, in pro wrestling, it naturally puts you over.
Yeah, exactly.
If you look at like, perfect example is Adam Cole. When you hear Adam Cole, you can't help but say "Bay Bay."
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So that's why when I open up, I always say, "My name is Ashley Rose, but you can call me Ash." And then I always follow it up with something that's relatable, recognizable, synonymous in some type of like cultural aspect, which is why I always go with like the Evil Dead. So that way you remember that my name is Ashley Rose, but hey,
sure.
remember Ash because I like the Evil Dead.
There you go. It all connects. I actually watched I watched some of the one with David recently, but I also watched the one you did with Wednesday recently as well. And I was so happy that you asked him, like, hey, how'd you come up with Wednesday 13? And because I'm like, oh, I know this answer, but some people may not. And same type of thing. It's just something that's memorable, something that people can, gravitate to, and that's ear and eye catching, and it rolls off the tongue nicely. Wednesday 13,
there
it's
might
easy.
be people that don't know what Wednesday 13 came from,
right? Yeah.
For like knowing like who Wednesday is, or people that toured with Wednesday for ages. I was so happy to hear that he had a new album that came out.
Yeah. Which is really good, by the way.
It is a really good album. It is. I knew it was going to be good. I just had a feeling, like I had a gut feeling about it. But yeah, no, I always feel it's appropriate to ask a common question, at least one, because there might be people that are like, hey, I've heard of Wednesday 13, but I don't know much about Wednesday. Just like how I wanted to have you on, because I found out a lot of people know who Blitzkid are. They know what Blitzkid the band is, but they don't know much about Blitzkid.
Yeah. It's interesting now because, you're looking at, again, since being around since 97, you're looking at, we have a cross section of people that come to see us now, which is crazy to think about because we've been around for 28 years again. Um, you have people that have been there from the beginning. You have people that kind of found us in the middle. You have people that kind of found us right when we were, calling it a day in 2012. And now you have the people that were there from the beginning bringing their kids to see us. So it's come kind of full circle. It's like three generations of people almost now. So it's kind of crazy to think about.
All the years that you've toured, you've done festivals. Safe to say, what's one tour memory that still haunts you to this day? In a good
Still,
way. In a good way.
um, man, this is a recent one. This was in 2023. We got to play Wacken Open Air in Wacken, Germany, and never in my life did I think that two stupid kids from Bluefield, West Virginia, were going to be playing across the world somewhere, 20 some odd years later to one of the literally like the biggest metal festival in Europe. And there's I say metal, but that's what it's predominantly known for. But now they have like some punk bands and stuff on there, and like Dropkick Murphys played the year that we did. Um, but like to be on the same bill with you know again Dropkick Murphys, Megadeth, whom was my favorite band of all time, Iron Maiden, another favorite band of all time, Killswitch Engage, all these friggin' bands, that I kind of was like, what the fuck are we doing here? But like at the same time, and I don't say this with any arrogance or any hint of like entitlement or anything like that. But at the same time, I was like, what are we doing here? But like, well, I thought to myself, well, we deserve it. We deserve to be here. We've paid our dues. We've done some extraordinary things, and this is one of the most extraordinary things we've done. So I'm going to enjoy this. And yeah, it was awesome. I still have my laminate from Wacken Open Air, and it was crazy though. The biggest thing that I remember, the only bummer about that was when I still had my torn quad. So I had to play, the biggest festival we've ever played. I had to play sitting down. Um, because my quad was not fully healed yet, and um, but I was like, there's no friggin' way I'm missing this. I don't care. I will sit down if I have to. We're playing. So and the other thing that I remember about that day too is it's we get there for like we were supposed to be there for like 4:30, and we were going on until we were one of the last bands to go on the Saturday night, and it was crazy to me because we get there, we get whisked away to the artist tent, and we have dinner. Then we take it to our dressing room, and in that amount of time from like 4:30 until like midnight, because I think we went on at like 12:30. Um, it seemed like that time lapsed within like 20 minutes. It seemed like, we were here, then we were here, then we were here, then we were in a dressing room. They're like, okay, let's go grab your guys' gear. We'll take you to the side stage. It's side stage. And I'm like, what? Like, and I'm like looking at my phone. I'm like, oh, holy shit. It's like 11:45 right now. Okay. Where did the time go? So, and I think that was just all of us, being so hopped up on adrenaline and like, being so excited. Like the day just flew by, and it seemed like our set did as well. Cause we played for an hour, but it seemed like we played for 20 minutes and then it was over, and it's just like, oh man, I wanted to relish this for a little bit more, but as soon as it happened, it was over, but it was still awesome. Probably like I said, definitely a feather in our cap, a crown in a jewel in our crown, all the expressions you want to use. But, that's one that definitely sticks out. I hope we get to go back again and I can play, on a healed quad and stand, this time. So because that was the only bummer of it for me. I was just kind of, it's kind of hard to rock out sitting in a chair, but
So, before we close out, I want to ask you. I mean, you've had Blitzkid for all these years. And of course you have your side projects, you know, you and Ghouls have your side projects as well. And those are all great. Those are all phenomenal. And I just want to say personally, you know, from like as far as you know, not from, oh my gosh, for like my community, it was an honor to have you here.
I appreciate that. It was an honor for you to be here.
You know, Misfits, they've got a legacy. So
Sure.
what do you think Blitzkid's legacy would be?
That wow. I hope I hope that when, we're all dead and gone, um, that I hope there's two things that people take away from, Blitzkid and our time as a band. And one, I hope it's that we brought people together. Well, three things. Okay, three things. One is that I hope it, I hope that people will get a sense of that we brought people together. We introduced friends to each other, and so in some cases, as we find out now, husband and wives, all kinds of stuff. So I think part of our legacy will be that we brought people together of like mind. Um, at the end of the day, man, I hope the other part is that we've always put on good shows. We've always given it our all, and we've always, you know, even when we didn't know what we were doing, we found a way to do it, and we made it work, and we scratched and we clawed and we played out as much as we could to get where we could, and that the biggest thing for me, part three of that would be is that we leave more good songs than we do okay songs or bad songs. And I think so far, if I may be so bold, I think so far we've done that. I don't think we've released too many, songs that people skip over, or too many, albums that people are like, it's all right. But, everybody has their favorite record. I get that. I do too. Bands that I listen to. But I don't think Blitzkid as a band, I don't think we've ever released an album that had any filler or any non quality songs on it. So at the end of the day, like, because those are going to outlast us well after, we're not here. So that's the biggest one for me. At the end of the day, I hope in our little corner of the world, our little community, our little scene, or whatever that we're a part of, I hope that people that are involved in that scene that have come to love Blitzkid when we're all dead and gone, and all that's left are the albums, is that they can still listen to those albums from front to back and be like, man, there's just no bad songs on here. That's the biggest thing for me.
It's pretty hard to skip over a lot of Blitzkid songs. So
I appreciate that.
no, it's true. Pretty much the majority, even I would say the earlier stuff was produced very, very well.
I would disagree.
No, seriously,
That's just the musician in me, though.
yeah, no, and that's okay, but I feel that a lot of them were produced very, very well.
Thank you.
Especially when you had reintroduced volumes back to when y'all did like volumes 1, volumes 2, and then you had rarities. The production quality is very phenomenal, and I think that's one of the reasons why, in my opinion, of course, besides Blitzkid's stage presence, with Goolsby doing his own thing, with his bass and and the makeup, and of course the videos. I think that's one of the reasons why people tend to gravitate more towards Blitzkid than a lot of the bands in horror punk, particularly that time. I remember when I talked to Jackal from the Crimson Ghost, he had told me how popular Blitzkid was in Germany. That he would equally say that you were just as popular as Misfits.
Yeah, which is mind blowing to me still. But and like I've seen articles over the last couple of years. I don't believe this for a second, but it's cool that people do. But I've seen articles over the last couple of years, that like, Blitzkid have surpassed the Misfits, or like Blitzkid are the successors to the Misfits and all. and that's great. Like I said, I don't feel that way. I feel like what we do is what we do, and if people feel that way about us, that's awesome. But none of us personally feel that way. But it's great that people do. And again, I think it makes us stay relevant, because you look at it, and kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, as far as like having generations of fans now, I have a lot of people that message me on social media or whatnot that I'm friends with now or anything like that who will say, man, I got into you guys right as you were breaking up in 2012. So, or I got into you guys because I saw you on Escape the Grave in 2022 or whatever. So, the fact that we've got such a long tenured um, existence behind us now, I think it's cool that people are still discovering us, and I will never, ever, 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 ever take that for granted. Because it allows us to still do this, um, quite frankly. And I can't. Speaking of which, I can't thank our fans enough because y'all are some crazy motherfuckers, and I love you. And you enable us to do what we love, and you have us tattooed on your head, you have us tattooed on your legs, and some of them not just the logo. Some of it, again, some people have "Long Live the Horror" tattooed on them somewhere now. Some people have my face or Goolsby's face tattooed on them now. It's crazy to think about because again, we're just two dudes from bumfuck West Virginia who just wanted to connect with people, man. Wanted to find like-minded people that liked our music, and we have, and I can't thank everybody enough for that. That's amazing.
I think also Mothman has become a part of it too.
Absolutely,
Mothman
absolutely,
has become a part of it.
for sure, for sure. I've often wondered how like us, kind of championing the Mothman and having the song Genus Unknown. I've often wondered if that's like increased tourism to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, in and of itself. I'd be interested to know.
Because I think it's Blitzkid related. It's a possibility. Okay.
Yeah, hey,
But I'll let you go. Thank you, TB, for being here. I appreciate it. Of course, all your socials are linked below. The link to the shows, everyone, is on the bottom. There are 6 shows that are going on. I will be at one of them, maybe 2 of them. You'll figure it out that time period. And of course, I have everything listed there. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
thank you for having me, and it's been a good time. And I hope that I haven't rambled on too incoherently. I tend to do that from time to time, but
You're good. You're good.
but no, thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me a platform to talk about Blitzkid, and thank you to the fans and everybody who's going to watch this, and thank you guys for listening, and for as long as you have. If you're just now listening, keep listening, and that long live the horror.
Long live the horror. All right, everyone, have a good night.
And special thanks to Curse Cosmetics, Abracadabra NYC, 8-Bit Magnet Co., Rep Sports, Raise Energy, Club Early Bird, Canva, because I feel like no one thinks Canva, and Secret Society of Goths, telling secrets for over 7 years. This has been a DeathArts13.com production, so give us a follow at DeathArts13.com.